Awesome to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I've gotten this question a couple times because I've mentioned it in a few other videos. I'm Brian William. I go by BW, and you find yourself on the Wellness Hero channel. And I've shifted the consciousness to be about cannabis and where I'm at in New York State. I'm going to share right now about how I got my prescription for the first time and really getting access to my card. Because someone said, why did it take you 9 months? And that's a very good question. It should not take someone 9 months to get a medical card in New York State. If you have a diagnosis from traditional medical doctors, was 100, $200. I think there was a range between 150 to $200. I was able to do this online digitally. It was very easy and it was amazing consultation. I had sought out a very educated woman. She had been interacting with cannabis for 30 years. She had worked with her mother in some severe ailment, and as well as she's been a nurse practitioner for several decades, as I mentioned. So realistically, the conversation with her was very awesome. We talked about dosages, we talked about all these different criterias and ratios in the products, and it was very informative. But I went into that consultation already knowing what New York State was offering, what was possible. And then we come down to the point where I had that certificate from that practitioner. She basically sent it that night after our consultation. And I had to take that certificate and I went to the New York State Department. And I'm going to put all the links to who I consulted with, as well as New York State. If you're interested in getting your medical cannabis card, I would throw very much caution to the wind. But I am grateful that I actually physically have that card. I wanted that card for three main reasons. And it's very important with me being a veteran, talking to other veterans about cannabis and having that as a base criteria for gone through the process, even though there's a lot of risk involved when you share ailments or illnesses or diseases with a government agency, which is something I had avoided, which is why it took me 9 months, because this is where it continues. I had done acupuncture. I had done deep tissue massage. I had removed all pharmaceutical based prescriptions from my daily habit and routine and health routine and optimal wellness, and infuse essential oils, infuse a predominantly plant based diet, knowing the sources of where that food's coming from, growing my own food, being connected to local farmers and different CSAs. But the bottom line is, it's been a lifestyle to be holistic and natural. And over the last 5 years, I had no medical connection with traditional medicine practices. Only previously to that was there was some dermatology involved, but realistically, going all the way back to my service, when I exited the military in the year 2000, I stayed away from traditional medicine from what I experienced through that service. It was very not conducive, and it didn't feel like healthcare. It didn't feel like I was taking care of my body. I was having very debilitating experiences, and the truth of the matter is that's what's drawn me to cannabis. So what I had to do was I went to the VA. For the first time in 18 years since separating from service, I had no contact with any type of being diagnosed with any of the ailments. I had qualified for several of them, and I just never went to traditional medicine to treat with pharmaceuticals, and therefore I didn't have the documentation. And without that documentation, without that diagnosis, that's where the 9 months came into play for me to get my prescription. So then, I had my doubts about the New York State program. I walk into the pharmacy after setting my New York State card came in the mail. I had to register on their website, and registering on the website, which the link is below, that was a risk for me because now I'm putting myself out there and I'm documenting that this is something I want to do. And I've heard a lot of, you know, aspects from other states where that's why I feel it was risky. And it comes into play that talking to the pharmacist that day, it was a re-piggybacking off of the consultation I had, and we're figuring out ratios and dosages and how much you're allotted to get. And I walked in there wanting a full 1 month prescription, and I walked out of there with that and blindsided by truthfully, the level of cost, it wasn't not on their website. New York State's program does not have a lot of registered cannabis card carriers. At the time, I was under the 40,000 New Yorker. So this was back in February 2018. 40,000 New Yorkers had their medical cannabis card. And as of right now, I just checked yesterday, it's barely even doubled. We're, 80,000 New Yorkers. When you talk about New York City alone having 10 million people and the whole entire state in the area of Rochester, where I'm at in this Western New York region, is just under a million people, to have only 80,000 residents accessing the medical cannabis program, I'm not even really sure how it's even sustainable. And maybe that's one of the reasons New York State's making a big push for legalization and creating these regulations for recreational cannabis. They're realizing that there's a lot of revenue. Unfortunately, this is business driven. And that's why I don't feel New York State has true medicine, because the 5 dispensaries, the 5 places they're allowed to grow plants in New York State and distribute is truthfully not even enough. It's not transparent. And, and realistically, some of these aren't even local New York companies. And that creates a problem. Like when you have Columbia Care, which is the only dispensary in Rochester, I made a video about that. So check the description box below if you want to see why, you know, I feel the way I do. But I think the thing is, home cultivation is where it's going. And I'm going to share a lot of aspects about that, because getting my medical card, I'm grateful to have that card. It's a good way for me to have a platform to speak and talk about going through that process and the transparency. But realistically, I do not want people to go down that route, and I want education to be brought forth so there is that relationship and connection. Because as I see over the border with some issues with Canada legalization, one of the amazing crazy things is, packaging. We do not need to be packaging excessive amounts of plastic and all these other challenges we see. And then one thing that scares the crap out of me is not being able to grow this outside. And to only be able to grow a handful of plants is kind of scary as well. When we're looking for diverse medicines, we're looking for something maybe to take at nighttime, or we're looking for something for, topical use. And you need a lot of plant matter for that. Or if you're making tea from the roots and you're only allowed to grow 6 plants, that means you only get 6 root bundles and root balls. That's disappointing. That's not going to last the entire year. And with our growth cycle outside of New York, we only have one opportunity to do that. So home cultivation is where I feel this is going. And that's where my advocacy is pushing forth to attend sessions like the regulation and legalization in New York, to have a voice. I've been writing my local congressmen and senators in New York State for years. And I'm so disappointed with one of them, Rich Funky. He just has this weird concept every time he responds to me or one of his people. But I think the bottom line is being an advocate and coming out publicly, utilizing platforms like DTube, a decentralized tube, as well as YouTube, which is a controlled mechanism. I'm sure videos like cannabis and cannabis education are not part of the support for the mainstream, the fake news platform. And unfortunately, YouTube's a massive control mechanism for sharing free speech, like what I'm sharing, home cultivation, wanting access to full plant spectrum analysis and being able to cultivate and develop that gratitude with the sacred plant. This plant is not about getting high. This plant is about feeding our human system, our endocannabinoid system, our ECS. It's our immune system. It intertwines and interlocks all these components. Our bodies naturally make compounds of CBD and all these different chemicals, yet we're deficient most likely because it only comes in one plant, and that's a cannabis plant. And a form of that is hemp as well. So that's where we're it's being celebrated all over the US. There's tons of conferences, there's tons of expos, there's tons of gatherings, there's tons of community taking place. And that's where I want to be a part of it. Because when I look around where I'm at in Western New York, it's super disappointing to see it still in the closet, that it's not openly talked about, because there's a lot of healing that could be supported. There's a lot of individuals that are unfortunately putting a tremendous amount of strain on their human system through pharmaceuticals, through lack of knowing source and ingredients of anything. And that's why, as cannabis comes forth, it's vital that it is open and it is clear and it's transparent. So, with that, I'm going to end. I want to just say thank you for watching. Leave a comment below about your relationship with cannabis. We want to keep that conversation started. I will respond, as well as liking on, upvoting on these digital platforms. That is how we break our algorithms of this control of free speech. Use your digital imprint. As always, my friends, stay hydrated and live enthusiastically. Thank you, water. Yes. Namaste. And the stream, live videos. Yes, we're breaking the ice. 2018 continues. Enjoy your stay. And as Reiki with Will likes to say, make it awesome. And why leave it up to anyone else to do so?